Welcome back to the Chiropractic Connection. I'm your host this month, Dr. Amber Jackson, and this is a podcast by chiropractors for chiropractors. This month's episode features our resident philosophy and action expert, you all know him, Dr. Eric Plasker, followed by the amazing Dr. Patience Canty with a conversation on nutrition and wellness that we should all be having with our patients. For our doctor spotlight, I have something very special for you. Words from a friend and colleague. Many of you know him as Dr. Chuck Ribley, and many of us just call him River. His life and legacy have made an impact on your career, even if you were unaware. And finishing up this month's episode is our guest, Dr. Robert Alpert, a member of the Board of Chiropractic Examiners, giving us insight on licensure and state do's and don'ts. So if you are all ready to get connected, sit back, take notes, and enjoy. Now let's get into it. This is the Chiropractic Connection.
Have you ever wondered what makes chiropractic? We don't always have the answers, but it never hurts to imagine.
Hey everybody, Dr. Eric Plasker here. Welcome to Philosophy in Action. So excited to be with you, and the topic for this month is men and chiropractic. And hey guys, come on, we got to step it up, take better care of ourselves. And you know what's really cool is a lot more guys are working out. I see certainly there's a lot of overweight people in this country and in our state, but it is true that more and more people are working to get fit, trying to get fit, and it is also true that the acronym for fitness that is a core part of what we teach all the time in our practice and all over the world, this acronym for fitness in the 100-year lifestyle is, if you want to be fit for a lifetime, you got to do the N squared ESS, that last portion of fitness, the NESS, we say N squared ESS, it's neurology, nutrition, endurance, strength, and structure. And that's really important because a lot of people, a lot of guys that are working out, a lot of them are muscle heads. You know, they think everything is a muscle. And a lot of times it's not the muscle. A lot of times it's postural, it's structural, it's neurological. And what we tell people, and the reason why this acronym works, and we just point to our poster that says it, and we say, listen, you're doing the middle pieces, the endurance and the strength, the nutrition, the endurance and the strength, but you're not doing the first piece of this, which is the neurology, and you're not doing the last piece of this on this acronym, which is the structure. And these are the bookends of fitness. These are really important. The neurology, why the neurology? Because the neurology comes first. Muscles are attached to bones. They're controlled by nerves. It is very important that the neurology be clear, healthy, and strong so that these people can optimize their workouts and function at a high level while reducing the risk of injury. And then that last piece, the structure, is really, really important. Some people, they do pay attention to the structure, their posture when they exercise, when they're sitting, when they're doing certain weightlifting or running, they look at their posture. But the structure equals activity, as we say. We tell people that neurology is function, nutrition is fuel, endurance is longevity, strength is independence, structure is activity. So the structure will help determine the level of activity and the capabilities that you have during those activities. So we see a lot of people where they start to get adjusted, their posture changes, and so now they can lift more. They don't get sore as much afterwards, or they don't stay sore as long afterwards. They minimize their risk of injury because their posture, their structure has integrity as they're working out. So very simple concept, very easy to teach, very philosophically sound. It is absolutely true that neurology comes first. Structure is important to ensure proper activity and minimize the risk of injuries. And so everybody, every man, woman, and child needs to be under chiropractic care. So let's tell this story. It's very philosophically sound, like we said, and it's most importantly, it's the truth. So thanks for being with us, everybody, for another episode of Philosophy in Action. Dr. Eric Plasker signing out.
What better way to make every day your day than by learning how to treat yourself? Here is today's wellness tips.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Patience Canty. Thank you for joining us on the Georgia Chiropractic Association podcast. Docs, how many of you are having conversations surrounding nutrition in your office? I know several of you are, and we here at the GCA podcast commend you for it. However, what about your colleague down the street? Or even your classmate from chiropractic school who won't touch nutrition with a 10-foot pole because then they'd be seen as a mixer? Well, this wellness segment is for them. Beyond the drink more water, eat more fruits, veggies, and protein conversation is the why behind it. Many of these foods act in concert with our bodies to filter out all of the junk we come across on a daily, monthly, and yearly basis. We are docs that address not only subluxation resulting from traumatic stress, but also mental and toxin-related stress. Toxin-related stress can result from exposure to molds, fluorides, chlorines, glyphosates, mercury, heavy metals, benzenes in sunscreen, chemicals in foods that we can't even pronounce, artificial dyes, aluminum, phthalates, Teflons, iron shavings, vegetable oil, and even BPA. Several of our patients are on multiple medications for chronic conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease. The list goes on. We could literally be here all day naming those things. Now, we are not pharmacists, but a basic Google search can show us the common and less common side effects to many of those medications. And it's important that we do our due diligence to look those things up, because when our patients come to us saying that they are experiencing those things, we can then walk them down the road of self-advocacy to have conversations with their MDs about how the side effects are truly affecting them. Third, we need to know if our patients are lacking in certain vitamins that could have neurological consequences. B12, for example, can cause damage to our spinal cords and peripheral reflexes when we do not have it in the right amounts in our bodies. Vitamin E can cause ataxia and speech deficits. We can even see cognitive impairment, memory loss, and vision issues when vitamin D and B12 are compromised. We need to also continue that conversation to include which foods are rich in these vitamins, and note the fact that not all supplements are created equal. It may be that they are not bioavailable in the way that they should be for our patients. If you have patients that are actually on top of the ball with this, they know what supplements they're taking, they check their levels often, but they still aren't seeing the results that they need or the resolution of certain issues that have arisen, it may be time to refer them to a naturopath or an enterologist, because it may be an absorbency issue. Now, if you're seeing the pediatric population, then we've really got to dive into this artificial sweetener dyes conversation. Did you docs know that a child who eats 2 cups of Kraft macaroni and cheese, a small bag of Skittles, and 8 ounces of a crushed orange soda will consume 102 milligrams of artificial dyes? Behavior tests found that as little as 30 milligrams can cause neurological injuries. And oftentimes these same parents are told that their kids have ADD or ADHD. So you can see how important it is for us to dive a bit deeper with our patients on topics surrounding nutrition. We are helping them to clear toxin-related subluxations, which can ultimately help the correction of their vertebral subluxations hold longer. Stay tuned for our August wellness segment, where we will discuss further how to have these conversations with our patients and how it relates to their overall physical and mental wellness. Thank you all for listening to the Georgia Chiropractic Association podcast.
The Chiropractic Connection would like to dedicate this episode to Dr. Chuck Ribley. Now here are some words from our host, Dr. Amber Jackson.
There are those lives who affect all others around them, quietly touching one heart, who in turn touches another, reaching out to the ends further than they would ever know. Dr. Chuck Ribley, better known to family, friends, and colleagues as River, was one of the 16 founders of Life University, the originator of Inner Winners, and a masterful chiropractic manifester. During walks on Ormond Beach, Florida, this group of chiropractors crafted their vision of building a school that would change the world. Soon that vision transformed into reality in 1974 when LifeU was founded in Marietta, Georgia. Dr. Ribley spent his life dedicated to the advancement of chiropractic and Life University. His mission was simple: to empower individuals to reach their optimal potential. He exuded life, love, and purpose in everything he did and with each interaction he had. He had a way of evoking passion, confidence, and greatness inside of all of those who were blessed to encounter him. The Georgia Chiropractic Association is eternally grateful for the life and legacy of Dr. River Chuck Ribley. We extend love and light to his family, wife, Sunshine Ruth Ribley, children, Ann Ribley, Renee Ribley Stevens, Larry Ribley, Dr. Jim Ribley, and fellow GCA members Drs. Dan and Kristen Ribley. And to all of those who have been impacted by his transition, but blessed by his life. On June 22, 2023, his daughter informed us that the river has reached the ocean and received his eternal eagle wings. His lessons serve as a reminder that we are in control of our own universe. Dr. Ribley, aka River, was the difference. So for this spotlight, I leave you with the words that River once shared with me. Is light a particle or a wave? It cannot be both. If you observe it and you look to see it as a particle, then you will find it as a particle. If you observe it to be a wave, then you will find it to be a wave. Conclusion. In the quantum field, you will discover you are not an observer, but you are a participator within the quantum field. You are a co-creator. Be careful of what you're looking for because you are right. Is this a cooperative universe or a combative universe? The answer determines your life. Do we cooperate with our environment or do we combat it? Either way, you create. Is there a conspiracy or is there an unfoldment of a world of people who are or who control? You choose. Guard your thoughts and words. Live in a world of cooperation where each person is attempting to care according to their present ability as they grow in understanding. I am at peace. I am thankful. I care. I love. For I choose. I will affect the world. The world will not affect me. Blessings from River.
And now for the moment everyone has been waiting for, starring this month's experts.
All right, so welcome back to another episode of the Chiropractic Connection. This is a podcast by chiropractors for chiropractors, and I'm your host, Dr. Amber Jackson. Today I have with me Dr. Robert Alpert, and he's joining with us because we want to talk today about some of the do's and don'ts of that in-between time once a student has transitioned out of Life University or out of school, any school, and before they get their licensure. I've had a conversation with a couple of colleagues, and it seems like there's a little bit of confusion and there's some things all over the place. So I invited Dr. Alpert today with me so we can set the record straight for you guys so you know exactly what you're supposed to do once you graduate, what you can do while you're still taking boards, and then how long does the process take. So welcome, Dr. Alpert. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. Hope I can help.
I absolutely believe that you can. Dr. Alpert, for those of our listeners who don't know you, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you come from, and what brought you on this journey to chiropractic?
All right. Well, my name is Dr. Robert Alpert. I have always been told all my life that I have, what they say, good hands. All through football, all through baseball, all through sports. I got hurt when I was probably about 12, and they took me to a chiropractor. From that point on, it was a regular routine. I go play, get hurt, go see the chiropractor. And this went on for years, and it was getting to the point where I had to make some decisions, and my chiropractor was more of a friend at that point. And he said to me that maybe I should look into chiropractic. Applied to 3 different chiropractic colleges. Life Chiropractic College was one. They were the first ones to respond back. Graduate 1987. And since then, I've gone through a series of morphs.
Okay, awesome. Can you share a little bit with us more about the morphs that you're speaking of?
I started with minor things, getting involved with the government in which I was at, like Clayton County is the county that I started in. I morphed through all of their programs. I morphed through the Chamber of Commerce. I morphed through doing nonprofits. I morphed through donating. Then I started being offered positions to help. I aligned myself with a lot of credit to the commissioners in Clayton County, and they have a lot of programs, which I would encourage all students to look at, on educating, or VIP programs, on educating people to helping people. And that's what we do. We help people, not just out of pain, not just for accidents, but we actually change lives. And I wanted to do it on a bigger scale.
That's awesome. So, question, when you graduated, did you know exactly what you wanted to do? Did you have that kind of an idea that you wanted to open your own practice or be an associate? What were your thought processes? And did you really even know?
Not a clue. When I came out of school, I was in debt. I had a wife. I had a kid. I had business to business. I had no time to play. I started getting associate jobs. I joined every chiropractic management group known to man, and I went to all of them. I learned from the best. Davis Kinney, God bless him, he probably doesn't even remember this, but he took me into his office. He was an old board member, and he took me into the office. He started showing me what a chiropractic office was. He helped me with paperwork, in addition to some of the associates that I was involved in too as well. And I was learning more from my doctors what not to do than I was learning what to do. I would sit there and I would make judgments. I would say, no, I'm not going to do this in my office. I'm going to do this in my office. I like this. I like that. I wasn't really content with speaking to people. I was not a public speaker. That was the hardest part. Dr. Singer's probably the best one I can give credit for to get me out of that. He would not necessarily mentor me, but he would sit and talk with me, and he'd give me classes, and he'd give me things to do. He'd give me small projects to larger projects. So I started out talking to 2 people, then to 5 people, then to 20 people, then to 100 people, then to 500 people, and it got to be less and less of an issue. I did everything from knocking on doors, doing surveys to get patients into my office, to standing on the streets of Marietta Street in Atlanta in a suit and tie at 110 degrees out, doing spinal screenings on homeless people. But this is part of your growth, and this is part of your, I don't want to say your humbleness, your humility of what's really out there. And then the more you do for the underprivileged, the more the privileged take notice. It's just some of the things that you have to overcome, the troubles that you bring with you. But you're not going to hang your shingle up outside, put a big sign out, throw up a billboard, and expect to get patients. You have to be a people person. You have to get out there and meet people.
So I absolutely agree with that. I think that's so important, and I think that's what makes our profession so unique, is being a people person. So let me ask you, how did you know that you wanted to serve on the board for the chiropractic examiners?
I served on the board of Rainbow House for almost 25 years. And some nonprofits morph, and they morph from being a really well-meaning, and then they change over the years, and they don't agree with you any longer. And I got out of that, took up a lot of my time. That and working for the United and doing the VIP programs and stuff like that. I had free time, and I said, you know what? I want to be more interested in what my board does. And most of the board members scared the bejesus out of me. When they walked around, you were always, for me, it was just always an aura around them that you didn't want to approach. And I'm a fighter, so I went and I approached it head on, and I went to every meeting. I sat through every open area that they allowed me to. I drove to Macon, Georgia, from Marietta, and then from other locations, and now from Jonesboro. I did it every meeting that I was allowed to go. So typically 4 to 6 times a year. I didn't miss a meeting, know me. I just loved the way that the board was not a board to be afraid of. It was a board that did things that were very, very fair. One of the board members, Karen Mathiak, was moving on. She was going into politics. She was going to become her state rep. And I invited myself to help her. And the more I got interested in it, the more I helped her. And we would get lists of houses that were supporters, and we would go door to door. And I did that for her for the first year, almost every weekend in the summer. And I was tramping up and down people's driveways, put out signs, I put up billboards, whatever I could do to help. And this is free. This is voluntary. You don't expect to be paid. And when she won, I felt like I won at that point. I had put into the governor's office when Governor Deal was in, and even the one before him, I think Barnes. I put in several times as a volunteer to work for him in their office, and I never really heard back. I did it probably every year for the whole time they were there. It was a little quick letter. And then ultimately, Governor Deal's office called me and said, "You're one of 2 people that we're considering to replace Karen Mathiak. Would you be interested to come down and talk with one of their people?" And I said, sure. I got in the car, I drove down that day. I got interviewed. They talked to me. They said, you'll hear back. And then one day I get the phone call and it said, hey, you're on the board. And that was the start. And basically Karen started me on that because if she didn't give up her seat, there wouldn't have been one available.
I think it's great that you mentioned Dr. Mathiak because she is such a trailblazer, has been for a very long time. And for our listeners who have not had a chance to meet Dr. Mathiak, you absolutely would enjoy the pleasure of her company. She's a wonderful person and she's such a fighter for what we do. We have to rally around her and support her because she is on the inside and she's the only one that we have. Wouldn't you agree?
I think as a student, and I think even as a chiropractor in the profession, if you're not out there helping a chiropractor with your money, with your time, with your recommendation, which I mean her particularly, you're not out there helping her maintain her job as the house rep and maintain what she's doing for chiropractic. I don't think chiropractors are represented. I think that more chiropractors need to be members of the GCA. I could tell you with a great deal of certainty that a lot of people that come before us on the board, we usually ask, are you a member of any organization? Are you a member of the GCA? Are you a member of the GCC? Are you a member of any Georgia organization? And they'll tell me no, okay? These organizations inherently do nothing but benefit the chiropractic profession. And the fact that, we had that student membership, that helps, but then after they graduate, they're done. And they get it for free for the first year. So it's not like they have to pay anything. And then the second year is like a little bit of money. And the third year is a little bit. I mean, I think the first 3-4 years, they kind of morph it up to like $600 a year. That's absolutely nothing for the benefit of what the GCA has done for chiropractic and continues to do. And not to let down, the GCC does a lot too as well. But we need these organizations and we need these students to get involved with these organizations from the get-go.
So Doc, what makes a student a doctor? Like once they graduate, are they not doctors or are they doctors? I feel like there's been some discrepancy about this because a lot of students want to wear their TAMs, but technically they're not doctors yet. So can you speak a little bit more about that?
You can do anything that a chiropractic assistant could do. As long as you're under the tutelage of a doctor, you're under direct supervision, meaning that doctor is in the office somewhere. He is on the premises. Then that other guy, the chiropractic student, can do exams, therapies, everything but adjust. One of the issues that brings people in front of us as a student is they get a job with the doc. The doc hires them as an associate, but they're unlicensed. And he puts them in their clinic, and he gives them the keys, and he says, go for it. Now you have an unlicensed doc running an office and adjusting when he shouldn't be. Anybody who takes x-rays, your chiropractic assistant, your exam doctor, anybody who takes x-rays has to have an x-ray certificate from the state of Georgia in order to take x-rays. But I can't tell you how many offices have these staff that take x-rays that are not qualified to take x-rays. They don't think it's that big. They don't know. It's an issue, and it does come up for us several times. That's basically an infraction of the board. You cannot pose as a doctor. You cannot say you're a doctor until you pass your boards and until you pass your licensure and have a license. So a lot of these students are so gung-ho. They're setting up websites. They're setting up cards. They're setting up chiropractic corporations, and they're not even licensed. And this is a big no-no. You can't do that, especially when they go live with it. It's misleading to the public, and that's where some people don't understand about the board. The Georgia Chiropractic Association, the GCC, and any other organizations, they're for the chiropractic profession. They're there to serve the chiropractic profession.
So what's the purpose of your job? And can you tell me a little bit more about what it consists of?
That's the main purpose of our board. That's the main purpose of our investigations. That's the main purpose of our rules, policies. Everything is designed to protect the public. And that's what the governor positioned us to do, and that's what we took an oath to do.
Okay, Dr. Alpert, so this is what everyone wants to know. How long does it actually take for you to get your license? Is there a clearance time? Is it differ for most people? And is there anything that a new grad can do to help speed up the clearance process?
The biggest thing students need to do is get all their paperwork together. When you go to our website and it says apply for a license, there is a list of everything you need from anybody you need it from. Time-wise, you can get your license within 2 weeks if your application is clean. That means you've got all the paperwork that's necessary that they were asked for and are required, and you've paid in 2 weeks. I've seen it done. It happens quite a bit. The problem arises that the board will send the chiropractor, we need your transcripts, or we need a letter from your state saying you never practiced there, or we need something. And then the board doesn't hear back, and they never get it, or they don't even check to see if it was gotten. The way the board works now is all your stuff goes to the Secretary of State's office, but nobody's there. They're all home. So they have to go to the Secretary of State's office. They have to get the stuff. Then they have to upload it. Then they have to sort it. Then it has to go to some other employee to get to the little recorder, the little checkoff that says whether this person's active or not. Keep in mind also that the board, the chiropractic board, is not the only board that each executive director, each ED controls. Okay? So our ED handles probably 6 or 7 boards. We're not the biggest board. We're one of the smaller boards that he handles. So when he's doing a board with 10 or 15,000 members and we renew at the same time as they renew, they're getting a whole lot more from the other board. Okay, and keep in mind that the Secretary of State's office is running on a shoestring. You know, they were cut 15%, then 20%, then 30%, then back to 15%. So their budget's pretty light for doing the things that they need to do, and they do a great job. Our ED is Darren Mickler, and he is phenomenal. He keeps up on stuff. He's constantly in touch with us as a board. When everything gets to us in one way or another, he doesn't necessarily make a decision and put it aside. We're very lucky to have him. So, I mean, these things have to go through processes in order to get things done and changed, and that's why they process so slow. So if you're a student, the best thing you can do is make sure everything's gone. Think about it as this. If you send in something one at a time, the likelihood of it getting misplaced or lost is high. Versus you sending a completed folder or you upload all your stuff at one time without having to redo stuff or forget something or send it in later. Because it's coming in different times to different people, getting put in different places, and the likelihood of it getting lost is high.
Okay, so let's say a student gets their license during an even year. Are they still required to take CE credits and renew their license, even though they just went through that process? Or is there a grace period?
I kind of went through that just this last renewal period where there were people that I personally was involved in helping get a license with that are calling me up telling me that they're being audited or they're having to renew their license again. And I was like, well, you just got it 6 months ago. But they do have to renew. They have to renew it every renewal period, every person. Some people benefit from it, some people don't. Now, they don't have to have their CEs in order to renew. So they're not going to be required that first year. They'll only be required in the biennium to renew 20 credits for that first year they get for free. Speaking of CEs, make sure a lot of students are taking classes in, let's say, medication disbursement, or they're taking classes in dry needling or something to that effect. And those classes are not approved. They're not within our licensure. You can take them. You can have knowledge of it. You may even could do them in other states, but in our state, you can't. So therefore, you won't be allotted credit for that. And that's put people back 1 credit or 2 credits because they took that 2 CE class in dry needling, and that was denied, and they were short, and their license was refused. We are now a PACE-approved state. PACE, which is an organization that goes through the FCLB, or the Federation of Licensing Chiropractic Boards, they pre-approve continuing ed credits, but not every PACE program is approved by Georgia. So just keep that in mind. Take a PACE program that was approved in Connecticut because they may do prescriptions or they may do injections, and we don't. Those credits won't apply to ours even through PACE. Even though it's PACE approved doesn't mean that it's also chiropractic or Georgia approved, and we reserve the right to approve all of our own credit. It's a good thing if it's PACE, it's probably approved. We used to approve all different classes, but it got so extenuous of all the things. But you can always contact the board and say, hey, I'm taking this class with this guy who's teaching it. Is this covered? The board has, Logan is her name, and she's our person in charge of CEs, and she approves or disapproves your CE credits based on the approval list that we have. And she could tell you yes or no if they're on there or not.
So what do you do if you can't get in touch with Logan?
They can either call me. I know Dr. Krantz does his too as well. Mary. I think everybody that I've on the board fends questions. Whatever we don't know, we will forward to the Attorney General or we'll forward to the staff, and we'll get an answer for that. We're listed on the website. Our contact information is there. You can just call us at the office. I don't know of anybody on the board at all that would not be willing to help somebody with a question. Now, if the question's a legal question, we're not necessarily allowed to fend that because we're not attorneys.
GCA has an attorney, though, Aubrey Belines.
Correct. So if you're a GCA member, you get a seasoned, top-of-the-line attorney for free to ask any question you want, and he's also going to be there to help represent you in trouble, maybe not necessarily free, but at least a reduced price. But the idea is if you're a member of the GCA you're paying for him. You're paying for access to him. You're paying for his knowledge. And he is well known at the Capitol. He's well known on the board. He's well known as Secretary of State's office. The guy's been around for like 40 years.
So, Dr. Alpert, we know that Part 4 of the National Board exams is a huge deal. Do you have any advice for students as how they can better prepare for that exam, or how they should approach it or show up for the exam?
It's just my opinion. It's nothing more than that. It's one board member, one vote, one opinion. But I think if you're coming to the boards and you're taking your national boards, okay? So you're going to take your national boards and you're going to come as a doctor of chiropractic to the board in a t-shirt, your hair in a ponytail, and shorts and flip-flops. I think you're doing yourself a disservice. You're a doctor, act like one, even if it's just for an hour. Just put your uniform on of a doctor and act like a doctor. It makes you feel like a doctor. We're there as examiners and testers. We're there suited up, ties, suit jackets. I don't care if it's 100 degrees in there or 40 degrees in there. We're there the whole time you guys are and taking the test. And I just think it's protocol. And I think these other classes should be teaching that. And just to say this, because a lot of people have fears of the national boards. They have fears of the National Board Association. That association was put in place to help protect the public. It's to help test the education that you got in school, no matter what school. We're not doing seasoned stuff. We're not coming up with a lot of hard testing. The testing's very, very seasonal, very limited, very minimal, just to test the minimal ability of that person to make a simple decision. And it's simple stuff like OPQRST. It's simple stuff like setting up for either a wrist adjustment, knee adjustment, neck adjustment, low back adjustment. Simple things like being on the right side. You shouldn't be panicking about this. This is what you went to school for the last 4 years. This is what you got your 2-year, 3-year, 4-year degree before that for. It's just a test of your knowledge. If you want to get out there and start adjusting people, you want to get out there and start treating people, then you should be ready to do it. And you should be ready to at least show us on an animated patient how to do it without actually hurting them. Taking the exam is not stressful at all. And the examination has been morphed. It's been changed. So we took, instead of Part 4, we took the x-rays out of that and we put it into Part 3 to make it easier for Part 4s so that they didn't freak out. And the results have been great. The results have been better. They've been positive. And I just think that's phenomenal.
Well, you heard it here, folks, from one of the Board of Examiners, Dr. Alpert. Get active. So just to recap, Dr. Alpert said, while waiting for your licensure, you should remain active in the chiropractic community. That means getting to know your Board of Examiners, networking with future colleagues, joining GCA, becoming one of their committee members, and ultimately finding ways to develop and grow. Thank you so much, Dr. Alpert. It's certainly been a pleasure having you here. I really appreciate all your time and the information that you shared with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
So until next time, go get connected. This is the Chiropractic Connection. Our executive producer is Dr. Amber Jackson. Production staff is GCA Executive Director Valerie Smith and Communications and Event Coordinator Sequoia Gonzalez. Our hosts are Dr. Deborah Little, Dr. Ben McDowell, and me, Dr. Amber Jackson. Special thanks to our podcast founder, Dr. Noel Steinley, and Public Relations Chair, Dr. Naila Smith. We thank you for listening, and we want to hear from you. Please send us a comment or a question to sgonzalez@gachiro.org. You may be featured in a future episode. You can also find us on iTunes, Spotify, Audible, and the GCA website at gachiro.org. Please subscribe, rate, and review us. Don't forget to follow us on your social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the participants and are not necessarily those of the Georgia Chiropractic Association or its employees.